We're restreaming. We're streaming on YouTube. We got Facebook going. We've got Twitter going. And with me is back. You're back. You're back.
I'm back.
I didn't.
I'm
Last
back.
was cool that you thought you'd come back.
Yeah, had to give me some more. Couldn't get enough. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So we have for you today, and I say this every time I go live to just make sure. Okay, cool. So I've got some mentions over here, and so I'm producing and hosting while we have this conversation. So if for some reason you ever see me looking down, that's because we want to make sure that we get your comments in so that we can shout you out. And as we're having this conversation, that you can interject as well. So Breakfast and Convos, we come to you in the morning on LinkedIn Live, bringing you the latest in digital marketing, digital media, and news and tech. So, T,
all the good stuff.
You've got some gems for us this week. You dropped gems last week, but I know this week,
man.
With it, we're gonna talk about my favorite subject, live streaming. So what do you have for us this week?
So, full disclosure, guys, I am an e-marketer fanatic. I'm an e-marketer junkie. So I get a lot of, I subscribe to their email newsletter. I got a lot of good stuff emailed to me. They always have really good content. And they had a link in there that discussed live TV versus video streaming. And last week, you and I discussed some of the winners and the losers in the context of COVID-19. And one of the winners has been live TV, and specifically news broadcasts. So news broadcasts have been on the rise, and they're really doing a lot better than they typically do. So according to a
news. Okay.
Yeah, news. So according to a Horowitz research study, and I'm looking at my notes, by the way, like just in case you're wondering where my eyes are going. So according to a Horowitz research study, 2/3 of people are watching more broadcast news because they think that broadcast news is more trustworthy. And so, because of course they're worried about COVID-19 and where they're going to get their information. And so there's been this talk and this discussion that I want to have with you about whether or not this will lead to a resurgence in broadcast news, because younger viewers are starting to tune in, specifically because younger people, your younger millennials, your Gen Zs, they didn't really watch the news like that. Right. They didn't really go to the news. They got their news from other sources, but now they're starting to go to broadcast news a lot more. So some quick stats. ABC News, ABC Worldwide News Tonight had 12 million viewers last month. NBC Nightly News had 11 million viewers. CBS News had 8 million viewers. And this is an average, right? Like this is how much they typically get. Now, for context, that's nowhere near what Walter Cronkite used to get back in the day, right? Like Walter Cronkite would routinely get 50 million people watching him at once. But
then there wasn't the competition that we have with all these devices, and the internet. Horses and
not horses and carriages, but yeah, close to it, right? They had the Ford Model T, right? The Ford Model T. Like we just playing, boomers. Like calm down, boomer. We just playing. Like don't come after us in the comments. But so teeing that up, like, and giving your context with, you being an expert in video streaming, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. How do you think this will affect TV? Do you think this will lead to a resurgence in broadcast television as a trusted source and a go-to source? And if that were to happen, so two-part questions.
Okay.
How do you think that would translate into media budgets?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'm going to make sure that, because I always like to repeat the question, is that just with this resurgence in people watching live news, broadcast news, how that will impact the overall industry?
Correct.
Okay. Well, it's as long as we're in this pandemic, I believe that, yes, they are the new... not entertain. I don't think entertainment is the right word for it, but that's where our attention is. So, it's an attention, and Gary Vee says this all the time, it's an attention economy. So that, yes, you'll see the ads that are now, displaced from TV, or even companies reducing their ad budgets. Then when they see, oh, this is where the eyeballs are, they're going to go with the broadcast that makes sense. We even see that, even though we're talking about broadcast, we see that with the likes of Cheddar, who is broadcasting, and Cheddar being an online video streaming network or news network. They've kicked out all their other shows, like a lot of people that I think I might have mentioned that last week, that I know from the esports team, and that they were just let go because Cheddar understood the importance and the significance of this time. And then that's where that budget is. So I think that for the agencies, that's going to be a high cost, though, at the same time.
Yeah, it's this really really weird place, because of course we're talking about this as this is developing. So we're in flux and things change very quickly. So an IAB study found that marketers are going to reduce their TV budgets by 35 to 40% between now and June. And Barry Diller, who is the chairman of Expedia, which everyone is familiar with, Expedia.com, he said that last year Expedia spent $5 billion. That's billion with a B. They
I was
spent
gonna
five
ask. I was like,
billion dollars,
is that billion with a B? Okay.
yeah, on TV, and he said this year they'll be lucky to spend $1 billion.
Oh wow.
Because think about it, we're in spring going into summer. That's when people travel.
Right.
That's when people go on vacation. That's when spring break, which was a big controversy, which is another topic. But that's when Expedia spends its money, because that's when they want people to book flights and hotels and whatnot. And since that can't happen, Expedia didn't spend the money. But interestingly enough, the TV ad industry hovers around 70 billion. That's
Okay.
70 billion with a B. And it has been hovering around that for a while now.
Okay.
And so, despite audience erosion, and despite, Netflix and Hulu and everybody chipping away at it, TV has been a stalwart, and it's really not going anywhere, because thus far, TV has been successful in charging higher premium prices for that remaining inventory. So there's less inventory, but TV's been charging more of it, because in specific, baby boomers, who are still the largest consumer demographic, baby boomers watch a lot of television.
Yes.
They watch a lot of TV, and they spend money. They spend money on, and it's not just Metamucil or Depends or whatever. Like they baby boomers are the ones with the disposable income.
Right.
They're the ones with the money, and so they've really been propping that up. But I'm really curious on your take on how this affects streaming, because as you said, production is shut down right now. Production is completely shut down. But as we were talking about a little bit before we came on live, that doesn't mean you're not writing. That doesn't mean you're not strategizing.
Yes.
And so I'm sure that writers are cooking up, all bunch of crazy scripts that's going to make Handmaid's Tale look like a walk in the park. But, we're not actually going to see it until production starts back up again.
Right.
So with regards to streaming, like, how do you feel?
Jump in there with that, it's interesting that I think the news broke last week, like Tidal has created a freemium model. So they already have their subscription base, but they're now going into freemium model. And they're also just, Tidal was also behind the Teddy Riley and the Versus that's on Tidal. So to just see how those kind of companies are recognizing, oh, we need to hurry up and move on this like streaming content, because now not only will people get more access to their catalog, people who probably before didn't think about, streaming or paying for the subscription with them, then now Tidal, I foresee, to jump to tie that into your question there, is that, yeah, we're going to see a lot of production, like crazy production, come out of this. But even in the midst of this, because Trevor Noah being one of the first people to do a remote late night show, like,
Mhm.
just thinking through that, okay, well, they do a show, they entertain us. One, we needed entertainment because that's what
Right.
happens in these kind of when these kind of scenarios take place is we need the entertainment. There's a need for distraction and a need for people to just unwind. But for his team to come up with a solution it's not the full quality of his show, but it
Right.
still provides the same content and impact. And people are being very creative with how they are doing remote live. So I think even before we get out of this, we're going to continue to see great content in the midst of this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And something that can't be overlooked is that those with really deep catalogs, like Disney, for example, are winning because Disney has an enormous catalog. They have not only just the Disney movies themselves, but they have National Geographic. They have all of these other properties that they've gobbled up. ESPN, even though there's no live sports right now, you can play reruns of classics. And so something that is a really big asset is if you have a really deep library, because I don't know about you, but like most folks have a lot of movies and TV shows in their next Netflix queue that have
Right
been there for like a year that they've just never
now.
went back and watched. So now
Right.
Netflix has the robustness, they have the girth of the content, whereas some other services might not have that same catalog. And so other streaming services are kind of like hurting right now, specifically staying on Disney just a little bit longer.
Okay.
Something that Disney has figured out and has known for a long time is that households with small children are willing to spend more, right? You're willing to pay for exactly, yeah, right here too. Like you're willing to pay for more services because you need that kid content. Like so, according to the Wall Street Journal and a Harris poll, the average American spent $37 on streaming services in March, which is up from $30 in November. And
Okay.
then parents with kids are on average, for context, spend $60 a
Okay.
month on streaming services. And whereas the average American only has two streaming services, households with children have four because you gotta have that, you gotta have that, you gotta have the kid content. You gotta
Yeah.
have it. So it's really created this really interesting landscape in terms of where folks are in terms of the streaming services versus the parent companies, because Disney Plus is winning, right? The streaming service
All
is winning right now, but
yeah, I should say.
yeah,
Yes.
Disney, the parent company, is suffering because they make a lot of their money from the parks,
That's right.
and the parks are shut down. And so while Disney itself is suffering, Disney Plus is winning, which is why it makes so much sense to have that diversified strategy of just buying up. You can call them the evil empire if you like, but they just go and they gobble up all of these different media properties and these different entities, so that if if Disney parks go down, then Disney Plus is still up. And if ESPN goes down because there's no live sports, then they still have all of these other media properties
Okay.
to keep everything afloat. And the same goes for Amazon. Ain't nobody really watching Amazon Prime like that. Because you got the marvelous Mrs. Was it marvelous Mrs. Maisel and a couple
Right.
other hit shows, but in terms of the streaming shows, ain't nobody really checking for Amazon Prime Video. But Amazon was tailor made for a situation like this,
This is
right? Like,
Well, you know what? To your expertise in marketing and email marketing as well, what I found interesting. So I have an Amazon Prime account that I am now getting, or maybe it's just now that I'm able to pay attention to some of these notifications that I'm getting in. But they have been active with their email campaign of,
oh yeah,
oh, by the way, you have unused. Like I didn't even realize I get their music, their
hmm
library with that as well. So I haven't started yet, but I clicked through it. I was like, oh, really? What do you have? Because I never personally never really hear about Amazon and the music side of things. So we might need to like tie that into the next episode to just
Yeah.
what's happening with the music. You did mention Spotify last week, but just an interesting take on that and how these brands are revamping how they communicate with us and let us be aware of their offerings, because many of them in our minds are pigeonholed in
Mhm.
what we think. Amazon, first thing you come to mind is that brown box and that
Right.
package at your door. So that is, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that rolls.
Yeah, man. Listen, email marketing is the gift that keeps giving. Excuse me, in terms of marketing, social media, and in particular Facebook, they get a lot of the limelight, right? They do a very good job of staying top of mind. However, in terms of bottom line revenue and what's actually going to make your business grow, email is the perennial heavyweight,
Right,
like period. And that's for all businesses. No digital channel brings as much bottom line revenue to your business as email, because, and I touched on this briefly last time,
right.
there's only three ways a business grows. Just three. That's to get new customers, get existing, you can't see my fingers, but get
I
new
was about to
customers,
hold my hand together. Okay,
get
we got
new customers, get
right,
existing customers to spend more in terms of what we call AOV, or average order value, or get them to spend more often. So the AOV is the same, but they're spending more frequently. Those are the only three ways your business is going to grow from a strategic standpoint.
right.
And of those three, getting a new customer is the most difficult and is the most expensive. It is
That's
cheaper and easier. Yeah, it is cheaper and easier to get someone who has already spent with you to spend with you again, because they're the person most likely to spend with you.
right.
So, but you bring up a very good point, is that,
And you own them. Like that's
yeah.
the I'm like, oh, the way I said that might have not been correct, but own you.
Hmm.
You're not
Yeah,
beholden to a Facebook. You're not beholden to
exactly.
anything else except for whatever your email management system is. And that's that one-to-one contact, because we've got to open our inbox. Of course, the next highest one would be text. We see that
Hmm.
trend going with text messaging, which is not new, but it's just interesting how these tactics make a resurgence in certain
Absolutely.
and it really was at towards the end of last year. That's when I started seeing people like Candy Burris, although people associate her with the Real Housewives of Atlanta, but she is a businesswoman with multiple properties and assets. And whenever she would go live or share content, she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, text me." Gary V, another one, constantly texting. I've seen
Hmm.
those folks who are on LinkedIn right now might be familiar with James Andrews. He's out west. Text me. So people recognize that the lower that barrier between you and your customer, that is where it's at. And your ability to just reach out and touch them quicker is just critical. I just want to take a moment to say hi to everyone here. Okay, hey Tanya. Tanya Hicks is watching us on LinkedIn Live. And for those of you who are possibly watching the replay, thank you so much for joining us. This is Breakfast and Convos. We come to you on LinkedIn Live in the morning to just talk about the latest in tech, digital media, and news. And T, I want to just switch gears for a moment to, you mentioned social media, and some big news that came down yesterday was, or I should say in the last couple of days, is Facebook is now soon to be, I should say, soon to be rolling out the ability for, if you go live, that you can charge for your live. And now that is huge news considering the uptake in artists and entertainers and just content creators overall going live and using that as their means to connect with their audience and to continue to be creative. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and if they are going to relegate that to only, because right now what I've seen is that it is they're saying creatives or
Hmm.
musicians, but it'll be interesting because you on Facebook you have a lot. Because we each are in that digital marketing space, but some of the course creators or some of those coaches to see how they'll use it. If they, many of them have already have a system with their membership and
Mhm.
have closed groups where they broadcast. But now if you can go live and then enable people to, sorry, I'm having my BBC moment here.
Hey, I have been enjoying that for the that's why I didn't say anything, because I don't have a problem with it. I've been enjoying that for like the last 3 minutes, because like she put a picture up, it's the balloons is up, and it's like, well, she's doing a good job. So it's not like it'd be one thing if she was tearing up the couch or something like that, but she's actually adding value to the production. So
The
I'm like,
production back there.
let her decorate. We got an interior designer on our hands. She got a nice dress. Like, let the girl work. Like, be great. That's what I'm
That,
saying. Be
that's
great.
that's it. That's it. Only be said by a parent who was like, let's find the silver lining in all of this. But back to the silver lining with Facebook, and just what are your thoughts on how, what this means for creatives and overall the platform? Because ultimately this is their play to compete with the likes of YouTube that is
Mhm,
already, that revenue share. Why you still see
mhm.
people on YouTube, because as much as it's decreased somewhat in the past number of years, that
20%. CPMs
they're,
are down 20%. It's ugly.
yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So strategically, it's one of those things where we shall see. Um, I personally, my knee jerk is that people don't go to Facebook for that.
Right.
So they're in a sense, I understand that they're doing this to stay competitive, but even when you're competitive, it's important not to stray from what makes you you and what your actual value proposition is.
Mm,
So in the marketing world, we have this concept known as the funnel, right? And the funnel just describes a process of taking someone from awareness through loyalty, which is what you want.
right.
And what Facebook really thrives at is, at the top you have awareness, which is basically owned by Google, right? Because Google is a verb. People Google something because when they want to
Yeah.
find something out. And then Facebook owns the consideration phase of the funnel, which is directly under it. So even though, like I said, Facebook gets a lot of press and a lot of play, people don't actively go there to seek things out. They go there to connect with their friends and family. They go there to see their pictures of their grandkids. They
Right.
go there for community, and they go there for another reason. And then while they're there, then that's when you hit them with, oh, remarketing and blah blah blah. Because like, when Mark Zuckerberg got in trouble last election, he got asked directly, how do you make money if you don't charge people for your service? And his answer was very straightforward. We sell ads, right? Like, that's how we make money. So that being said, I think that I don't think there's anything quote wrong with it, but my only challenge with that is that people don't actually go there for that. They go to Facebook to connect with friends, be a part of groups, chat with community, whereas people go to YouTube for very different reasons. They go to YouTube to be entertained, and they go to YouTube to learn. So if you want to learn something, you don't know how to do something, you need a tutorial, you go to YouTube for that. If you want to just be entertained, you have somebody who you follow, you think is funny, you go to YouTube for that. So I know with my personal media usage, I go to Facebook more so just to check in, not necessarily to hang out, because I'm an older millennial. So like, I'm just like right on the ass in the Gen X, but I'm still a millennial.
Right.
So as soon as your
You
uncle, yeah,
oh, well,
as
you
soon
did
as
the
soon
Gen X type of thing.
right,
Just
as soon
one.
as your uncle and your grandma and all them start getting on Facebook, that was that. You know what I mean? I'm
Now,
still on it. I didn't jump off it.
there are some research for them too, and it's possibly even them. And I want to make sure I go to our last point, just cutting on time,
Mm.
that they're they see an opportunity. That's what
Mhm.
COVID is presenting for so many
Mhm.
people, is this opportunity. And that since there, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna have to do that and pull that back in our show notes to just see how,
Right.
well, there's an uptick in people watching live, and that the fact that there are many, because I'm even looking at some of the artists, going back to the creative side,
Mhm.
where they are streaming, doing a lot more streaming. There are concerts happening, and just looking at that, they do have Facebook Watch. So there are tendencies to go there for that entertainment side of things. But we'll just have to see how that all plays
But
out.
real quick before we transition, where I was going with that is that young people have fled Facebook.
Right,
Young people, like your Gen Zs and whatnot, as soon as older people got on Facebook, young
right,
people were out. They were like they went to Instagram, they went to TikTok, because like, no, I can't be me if my grandma is on Facebook. You know what I mean? And so because of that, I think that limits how useful this will be in terms of entertainment, simply
okay,
because younger people really ain't trying to be on Facebook that got their grandma and their grand uncle, and you know what I'm saying? So it's like young people are somewhere else,
right.
myself included. I don't behave the way I would normally behave on Facebook because I know my grand uncle. No, no.
That's it. All right.
Answer's
So as we're
no.
winding down here, we're hitting at this 8:15 in the morning. And again, we want to thank you for just joining us, as we've had a great conversation so far, just talking about the impact that live streaming has had and video content has had on the broadcast industry, and what that means to ad buyers. And just quickly, we got into some like news on Facebook and them releasing, just soon to be releasing. Let me make sure I say that, because just in case anybody cites our this episode, soon to be releasing the opportunity for you to actually charge for your live. And I will go into, before, just quickly talking about some of the things that we're seeing in the landscape for, this is impacting, COVID is impacting, faith-based community and churches and their ability to gather, because especially with social distancing, no matter what size your congregation is, that could be a dangerous situation if you do gather. And there are some of people that are doing this really well. And from the standpoint, and this is gonna be a first time here to try to see if we can pull this into the broadcast. I'm doing this on the fly. Note in, let's see here. All right. Uh we get it. All right. So I probably won't bring that into the broadcast right now, but there are some ministries, particular. There's one called Rhema Ministries, and they're in Canada. And yes, some bias there of being
Nothing
Canadian.
wrong with it.
Right. But what they are doing really, really well is the fact that while they are unable to gather, that they have been reusing their programs. So their evergreen content, because they've been broadcasting for some time now, for some years, but they are taking old services, previous services, and putting them together and mixing, matching. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure with their services and their programming, so that they still have the pastor, they pre-record the pastor talking and giving up to dates on what the church is doing, but then he does not necessarily have to go live. And that's an interesting take, because so many ministries have been trying to figure out how they can, do the remote live. But what they're doing is a lot of pre-recorded content, which is always the safer bet, as you just saw, trying to like navigate
Right.
those windows there. So, kudos to them on that part of things. But then a ministry that is going live, and I've got two Canadian ones. This one is particular. My mom attends, so that was part of my conversation last week, just talking about senior tech. But they broadcast on YouTube, and they use user generated content from their members, so keeping their members engaged. And then also having, they do a live broadcast within the church, and you can see that they're doing social distancing. Like the piano player is way back there, and then you've got the soloist on this side,
I
and
love
then
it.
pastor,
I love
right,
it.
on this. So making sure, and that's a good visual for many to see, because there was some backlash with regards to ministries and churches that were just saying, we're still going to gather, we believe, and not following directives that have come down from the government. So I appreciate how they're still staying strong to their faith and their beliefs, but then at the same time, making sure that they are just abiding with what's taking place right now. And
Absolutely.
user generated part of things is amazing, because again, social distancing, if you have a community is big, so knowing that now they're unable to gather the way that they have, for them to still engage with their overall community. And then the last one is, yes, US based, but ANWA, and that's All Nations Worship Assembly, and their production is like, and I guess I should say ANWA and Buckhead Church, which is part of the North Point Ministry series churches, where they take that production value all the way up here. And I feel like I do want to come back with some graphics and animation so that you can see this, because what it shows is that there are, it's like the gamut. That's essentially what I've just shared. Rama, they're reusing, repurposing content. You've got the middle tier where they're going live, they're engaging with their community at the same time. And then you've got the full out production where it could be the likes of the Jimmy Kimmels and the Trevor Noahs with their late night shows. So I'm just curious to you, for UT, like, what out there have you seen from the live stream content aspect? Like, who's doing that well? Anyone that you follow or you watch?
Well, I attend a smaller church here in Dayton, Ohio. I live in Cincinnati at the moment, but I think the ones that you named are definitely best in class, particularly as it pertains to user generated content, because that's one of my first loves as a
Okay.
digital marketing expert. I think whenever you can do that successfully and not shy away from it, because a lot of brands in particular are
Yeah.
very gun shy when it comes to user generated content, because you know you can have somebody go rogue, and now you got a brand safety issue on your hands, right? And so I think that's fantastic. And to your point, I think it's great that they were able to adapt and still stay healthy, because you, while respecting people's convictions, you can't be out here binding and loosing in the absence of wisdom.
That
Right? You have to exercise wisdom. The
right.
Bible helps those who help themselves. You can't be out here loose and just expecting, you know what I mean? So I think that's great. No particular examples come to the top of my hand above and beyond those two great examples, well, three great examples that you shared. But I think that's amazing, especially like I said, doing it well. Like we were just talking about at the beginning of the pre-production, my youngest son turned 4 on Sunday, on the 26th. And of course, couldn't have a birthday party, and unfortunately I couldn't shoot down to see him as I otherwise would have done, because of states still being shut down and blah blah. But what
Yeah.
his mom did, which was very smart and very innovative, is that she created a Facebook group,
Okay.
and she did bingo via Zoom. So she uploaded all the different bingo cards that the parents could then download and print off. And so she set up the bingo, and it was only like 6 or 7 kids who were able to join. And playing bingo with a bunch of 4-year-olds via Zoom
I can
is
only imagine.
organized chaos, but it was so cute. It was so cute. And of course, she still decorated the house and put up, all his toys on the table, and got a cupcake cake from Publix and everything, just to try to maintain that sense of normalcy.
Okay.
And I think I would call it a success. I think she did a great job, even though, essentially it was just her and him in the house and it was everybody else in their respective houses. But you still tried to celebrate the birthday as best as you could, given the circumstances. So I know that's not a church example,
Oh
but
no, it
still,
works.
yeah, still example of people doing the best they can with what they got.
That's it. Well, as we begin to wind down, I also definitely want to acknowledge some of the comments that have been going on here. And I should have had my phone instead of the laptop over there. But going back to just what we were saying about Facebook and the possibility of them allowing content creators or creators to charge. So, Tanya Hicks, and I thought about this, Tanya. So, good call on that. So, she says they go to Facebook to watch Red Table Talk. And that was just going back to like people are on Facebook Watch, people are programmed to go there to watch things. But to her point, they don't spend money to watch content. Like they're not spending money. And like you
Yeah.
said, when people go to YouTube, you are going to YouTube with intentionality of, it's the second largest search engine. So you're
Yep.
going to search for something that you're trying to find. They call those micro moments of I need
Hmm.
to find, how do I do this or that? You're going to learn something. So there is just that connectivity to, okay, well, I'll pay for this, or I'm supporting this channel and I really like what they're doing. And so yes, there's a different mindset and strategy there. So we were gonna revisit this to see how that plays out. But what I'm curious from you, T, as we wind down is how do you spend your time away from the screen? Because we are spending a lot of time, whether that be from a work purposes or us going live or you being on meetings. Like, what do you do away from the screen? How do you unwind away from the screen? That's our question of the day.
Right, right.
And if you're watching, please go ahead and let us know, how do you unwind away from the screen?
So two things. One is I'm currently in the process of getting less fat. So I know you can't, see, but I've actually lost quite a bit of weight. And like, listen, my calves are on fleek right now. Like, and
Nice.
I don't even use the word on fleek because I'm a grown man and I don't talk that way. But it, I can't do it. Like, if I could show you my calves, like Liberty, it's serious right now. Okay, I'm winning. All right, I'm
Nice.
winning with the calf game right now. But so I exercise about 2 hours a day.
Okay.
I wake up at about 5:30 in the morning, and I'm on the treadmill by about 6:15. I did that earlier today. I got up at 4:30 this morning just because of the production. But I've
Yes.
been using the Peloton app. In
Oh,
addition to, I have a Apple Watch which
okay.
tracks my steps. And so I haven't been like posting on social media or anything like that because when I started exercising was in January. Everybody's exercising, and I'm not sure how well you can see that, but this is the activity app on my
Okay.
phone. And I actually have not missed a single day of exercise since
Kudos
like
to you.
February what's that, February 13, when I got back from startup grind
Okay.
in February. And what's great about this is that like they give you these awards. They give
Oh,
you like these Power Ranger awards that my aunt calls them. And so whenever you do something, so I've been collecting all of these awards.
nice.
And so the more to the story is gamification works,
I
folks.
was gonna
Like
say, yeah.
gamification, it works. Like for whatever reason, they do gamification a lot in like preschool in
Okay.
the lower grades, but then as we get older, they stop doing it. Like it don't work anymore. It work on grown people, y'all. It work.
Start those emails and
Yes.
like saying it.
It
And
is.
back here, discipline beats motivation. That's right there
Mhm.
on the wall. So
Every
that
time.
is what you're
And
living out.
so I've been exercising quite a bit more. And then of course, this has come as a surprise to no one. Podcasts. I listen to quite a few podcasts, which is where like I said, I get a lot of my talking points. I listen to Christopher Penn.
Okay.
Um, you know, Marketing Over Coffee, and I get his newsletter as well, which his newsletter, if you haven't subscribed yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to go to Marketing Over Coffee, ChristopherSPenn.com, and subscribe to that. So
All right.
those are I would say the top two ways I've been spending my time, is that I'm either in the process of getting less fat, so I'm
Okay.
spending time with either Peloton, or I'm an iPhone user and I use Overcast. So
Okay.
Overcast is the app that I don't, you probably can't see that good. We have to do, I'll figure it out how to share later, but
I was thinking, oh, we already got another one of just like the apps and what we're
right.
what we're using or what we're in. So, and speaking of apps, so Audible is my friend. So if my friend Keaton is watching, he's an avid reader. So it was, I think, about 2 years ago that I just buckled down, and also a mentor called me out for reading, not reading enough. And I found the beauty of the app from the library to download and be able to consume books while I'm on the go. As you guys saw, that busy little person there. So to
Let her
find
be great. It's fine. She's great.
to find time to be able to just like sit still and read versus being able to have, Audible open or the library. So this is right now I'm listening to The Power of Broke by Damon John. And I've got a few books in the list. So it's definitely listening to books. And then also I'm exercising as well as you. And of course, having a little person stuck in the house is like no bueno, no bueno, no bueno. We both need exercise and to stretch. So around lunchtime, we'll get a walk in. We'll also later in the evening. So just to, move around and stretch and not just be sedentary all the time. So, well, there we have it. We've come to the end of our morning broadcast. Another great episode of learning and discussion. And so w- so I guess we'll be back, right? We'll
Yeah, we'll be back Thursday. Yeah, stay tuned. There's more awesomeness to come.
That's it. And if you have a topic or subject matter that you are interested in hearing us discuss on Breakfast and Combos, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit some of those likes and those thumbs up and share it. Especially if
Hmm.
there are marketing professionals out there. We said this on the last broadcast that we want to highlight people who are looking for work, especially since we're on this LinkedIn platform, that we will bring them into a show, whether that be pre-recorded, whether that be even having them come on live to just talk about some of their expertise, because this platform for us is our give back, not only with the conversation and not only with us just sharing our insights, but creating a platform for our marketing peers to get in front of a captive audience like many of you who are watching. Thank you so much, Tanya. You have a great day as well. But we
Thank
look forward
you.
to seeing you on Thursday morning. So until then, bye bye.
Bye.